Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert who helps business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. And today, I have an awesome guest. He's an internationally recognized best-selling author and #1 authority in transformational leadership. And he creates time and freedom by delivering productivity tech systems, CRMs, and building remote VA teams for entrepreneurs and business owners. And at age 24, he was running a $45 million building company. And for 12 years, he was leading one of Australia's leading community service organizations. And for 6 years, as owner and CEO of one of the fastest growing Australian education companies, training in leadership and community service for the NDIS, as well as 30 years in private business. He's also authored 4 best-selling books. And just 2 weeks into retirement and selling his companies in 2018, he couldn't sit still. So he started again from scratch and had an absolute hunger for cutting-edge technology that complements productivity. And now he's running 3 companies which had a suite of services ranging from CRM, business systems, project management software, and outsourced teams. Welcome, Kel Holliday, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you very much for having us here, Athin. It's great, mate.
You're welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be a great show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Oh, look, it's been a roller coaster, and I've been through the school of hard knocks is an understatement, I would say. Started off very young in the entrepreneurial world, particularly in the building industry, and I hit a big barrier when I busted myself up. I actually had a fall on a building site and ended up 6 months unable to walk and really had a struggle. And it was then that I realized that working hard was not the answer. You had to work smart. And I pretty much lost everything. Very successful business, but I didn't have those systems. I didn't have the idea of being able to delegate. It was all up to in some respects, to myself and to motivate my team by myself. And so a big learning curve in that. And so that's where as I started the next business and the next business after that, I learned from that mistake a lot, and I've enjoyed it. And one of the barriers, and one of the things I like to say to people is, doesn't matter what your barrier is, you can overcome it. And my biggest barrier when I was young was the fact that I couldn't read or write until I was 30 years of age. I could pick up a couple of words here, but I couldn't string a sentence together. And I found out that I was dyslexic, and I didn't realize until I was 30. And so that was a big barrier to my learning. So I had to rely on memory rather than anything else. And so I just want to encourage people. That was the barrier I had. So I had these 2 significant barriers that hit me. But look, it's just about pushing on. If you're passionate and if you're spirited enough to do it, you'll make it happen no matter what. So,
yeah, awesome, mate. I love that story and background, and I agree. There's always a lot of things we have to overcome, and awesome to see you move through that. It's like what is it? Colonel Sanders from KFC created it when he was in his 60s, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's never too late, right?
Very, very much. In actual fact, you say Colonel Sanders. At the time when I started, I had the big Colonel Sanders little goatee and everything like that as well. And a couple of people called me Colonel. It was quite an interesting. Are you going to get going again? Like, here I was, 55, in 2018, being 55, and thinking I was going to retire, and it only happened for 2 weeks. And they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I just can't sit still. I've got to do something.
Yeah, that's it, mate. I love it. Get that out, and funny stuff there. And yeah, awesome that you got back into it. I think retirement's an interesting one, where I don't think you can do nothing, right? Like, there's only so much golf and whatever things you enjoy doing, you got to be still doing something. So awesome to see you, get back into it, and now helping entrepreneurs and business owners as you do, and the key thing is obviously productivity, about how you're helping them. And so let's touch on productivity, because obviously it's a big suite, and we can get deeper into it shortly. But initially, overall productivity, what are some key tips, like some of your top tips of how we can increase our productivity?
I think your mindset is going to be the first point. And if you don't have a mindset that you need to systemize and that you need to control, like me when I was in the building industry, if you think that everything revolves around you, your productivity will suffer. All right. And because you just got to run harder and harder. And the harder you run as the business owner, the more you take on yourself and responsibility you take on yourself and continue to do yourself, the slower you get. You just physically haven't got the capacity to be able to think of all things. So having that mindset to create the systems and duplicatable systems, and also to work within your area of passion. You know, there's a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts in a business. And as a solopreneur, when you're first starting off, typically you're juggling everything. You're doing the accounts, you're doing your sales, you're doing your marketing, you're doing every piece. But at some stage, you've got to take that step and say, well, like, I need to get some break. I'm going to have a break here. I've got to have a holiday. And as soon as you go on holiday, you know, how do you go? So when in the area of productivity, if you don't get that essential thing right, the mindset to be able to duplicate and to delegate, then you're in a world of pain. You're setting yourself up for a failure, you know, long term. It happened to me, and it happens to most entrepreneurs. That's where my passion has come from now, is to try and help people become productive and get, I call it life. I don't call it work-life balance. I call it life balance, because work is a part of life, you know. And I think the other tip is, big thing is work out what you love to do. Now, Jim Collins says it really well. You know, what are you passionate about? What are you what are you the best in the world at? And then make some money out of it. And so if you can work out what you love to do, now what's going to get you up every single morning, and concentrate on doing that, and then that's how you sort of work out, well, these are the things that I like to do. This is the thing that I'm productive at because I love to do it and I'm passionate about it. And these are the things that I really don't like to do, and they just drain me. And so they're the things that you've got to systemize first and outsource those so that you can stay in your passion. That will energize you, and you will become more productive. And you will find people who are passionate about those things that you're not passionate about. That's the thing. So
yeah, awesome. I love that.
They're the main tips.
Yeah, I love those tips. Really important, especially as you grow and delegate and everything else there. And one key thing, obviously, in business is systems, right? And we've got to be able to sort of automate things. And there's a lot of systems out there that we can be doing. So I'd love to hear, overall, from your perspective, what key systems should we be using in our business, to be more productive?
Look, I think any business, and it really doesn't matter what your size is, you need to, part of productivity is being able to control and manage your time. Now, I don't say talk time management, I say it's personal management, but your how you manage yourself and how you delegate your time is crucial. So having some sort of calendar management system. Now, there's a number of them on the market. There's Calendly and Bookio, and there's a number of different places that you can go to, and some of them are free. All right. So I think a calendar system to be able to book, automate your systems and stuff like that is the first step. All right. Depending on your business. All right. But if you're in that coaching service type business where you're offering services and you're talking to clients a lot, I think that's a no-brainer. And I think the second one is a good CRM, customer relationship management system. Now, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones out there. And there are systems that you start with, all right, and it can work with your calendars as well. There's some systems out there that will do the barest minimum, and most people go for the free version. Can I just say, if you go for the free version, look out. You are heading for a disaster, all right? Because if you go for a free version, particularly in the CRM market, once you start to get some growth, all of a sudden they start to charge, and it's those charges long-term that will hurt you. And also the functionality. So you might be able to get something that's cheap and you can afford today, all right, but it won't have the functionality to do things into the future. So for me, the two big ones are calendar management and a CRM. And if you can get one that actually can combine that, I think you're on a winner, right? So it actually integrates that. The third one that I think really takes it to the next level. There's a lot of people are outsourcing or getting agencies and stuff like that to build their websites, and that's a good thing because they're proficient at it. But having something you can build funnels with, and be able to market with an effective that one. Another good tool. So you've got things like ClickFunnels and Lead Magnet, and there's different tools around like that. Again, a lot of the more upmarket CRMs have got those built into them these days, so they're a bit more of an all-in-one system, which is really good. As I said, you just got to be careful about which one you pick, because it starts free or it starts low cost, and as soon as you get a lot of clients or a lot of people in your database, or you get a lot of users and you build your team, it starts to really add up. And I've seen things start off at free, and then it's not long before they're at $2,500-3,000 a month US, and it hurts. You just can't go there, and then you're trying to change systems. So I think they're probably my biggest ones. Is your CRM, your calendar management system, and some way to manage your websites, whether you outsource that or have it within your own system. There's a lot of other tools out there, that ways of managing your social media, so that's a big time thing to be able how to go to do all your posts. So there's systems around that actually help you post and do your posts in bulk, so it actually schedules them out. So having a look at those systems as well. They're the main ones that I always look at. And then there's the obvious, the system or the ecosystem of, do you use Microsoft or do you use Google? All right, there is Apple out there. It is a little bit of a contender. I still don't see it as a major contender from a software or ecosystems point of view. I do definitely see that Microsoft 365 and Google Suite, they're the two big players, and that is really the foundational piece. If you don't get that choice right, you can be in for a world of pain long term as well. So there you go. There's a couple of snapshots of really, some of the basics you really need to start to think of.
Yeah, I love it. I love systems myself in general, and love to hear from other point of views, and definitely agree with a lot of those key systems that we need to have. Let's just delve a little bit deeper into a CRM, right? Because this is a really important thing, like you mentioned. And I think what would be beneficial for everyone is like how we set it up, right? Because the CRM really, client relationship management system is more like the buying journey or the client journey, right? About how we're doing that and how we're interacting with them, obviously with the emails or other things, and knowing what we're doing there. So what are some tips you can give us about like how to think about setting it up, right? Because there's certain buckets, I guess, or ways we could do it, because there can be big beasts, these things. So what's a simple way that we can think about it to set it up so that we can make the most out of it as well?
All right, great question, Athin. I love that question, and I think there's a couple of critical pieces. If you don't set up your CRM at the start well, you're going to end up in a little bit of a pain down the road. So I think number one is there's different systems call it different things. Most of them call it tags, all right, or segmentation. Yeah, so that's the bigger category. Segmenting your database of people when you're starting with a CRM, if you don't have your own mindset around how you're going to categorize the people in your database, all right, at least in the sense of, is this a prospect? In other words, somebody you haven't really engaged with yet. Is this a lead that you start to have a conversation with? Is this a client, or is this a past client? And so having those four categories allows you to communicate very, very clearly and in context. So for example, when you're writing your EDMs, your email sequences, and you're putting your different landing pages and different offers together, you are going to communicate very differently to somebody who's a prospect than somebody who is already a client. The client is either hopefully they're going to know and like you, all right, they're going to be trusting you a little bit more, but you've got to build trust with a prospect. And so having the four categories allows you now to segment your emails. At least that way you can have the same email sort of sequence, but just tailor the words or just word it so that it's actually going to the right sort of person. So that'll be number one tip. Segment your database in at least those four different categories. And then the second one would be know where those people are coming from. How did you add them to your database? Did it come from a Facebook lead? Did it come from a person you got their business card from at a networking event? Where do they come from? So you now again can segment and start to populate, saying, hey, it was great catching up with you at, You know, you don't have to necessarily say the particular event. It was great catching up with you face to face last week. But you can only say that to a person if you have got a way to do that in bulk. All right. And I think this is the number one problem I think we're finding in the world today is people are using the CRM to replace the human interaction. You can't. You can do so much, and there is some products and services you can sell, like some of the smaller ticket items and your online shops and stuff like that. You're capable of doing that and doing it through a CRM. But if you're really about customer relationship, people are craving face-to-face or at least a conversation like we're having here today. So don't allow your CRM to replace the humanistic part of it. Now, there's a lot of tools out there that can aid that. Things like there's another one called Bonjoro. Bonjoro is a great tool. You know, you can add that into your email sequence whereby it triggers you to send literally a recorded video to the person. So you'll get a little email. It'll say, Kel, contact Athin and say thank you. And so you literally push the button, you record it on your phone, and it sends them a personalized video and say, hey, Athin, thanks for allowing me on your podcast today. So a great little tool, again, in a CRM, if you can automate the thinking, not take away the humanistic part of it in your business, I think you're on a winner.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I love that with the different buckets. Very valuable on being able to do that. And like you said, target the people depending on where they're at on the journey. Let's talk now about one thing you didn't mention that I'd like to, I think is important, especially as you're growing, right, as a team, is a project management tool. Because even just for yourself to manage your tasks, right, you know, to know what you're doing, but then especially as you're starting to grow as a team, so everyone sort of knows what they're doing, etc. there. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around, project management systems and, you know, potential recommendations, or like, what are some key things that we should think about when you know, using them at the same time?
Yeah, look, project management, and if you want to delegate, if you want to create time and freedom for yourself, the only way to do that is to be able to delegate those tasks and projects away. The problems with delegation comes how do you maintain quality? All right, how do you maintain quality? How does the customer service journey, how does everything work that you know that it represents what you do? How do you make sure you don't forget anything? Right, so a CRM can do so much, but once they sell, for instance, and I'll just use a web developer, everybody knows there's so many different tasks that goes into building a website. You don't want to be communicating every one of those steps to a client, but internally you need to know those steps. And so your CRM will say, hey, we've started, we're halfway through and we're finished. That's pretty much what your CRM would say to a client. However, in the background, you might have 100 different steps to building a website. And so the project management software is where that lands and all the different tasks. And if you've got that sort of application, what it means, you can duplicate it. So the first time you do it, you realize, hang on a second, I forgot to do that. So next time you put that step into your task list and you won't forget it next time. And so over time, you can continually improve the process. And so project management becomes, and it also becomes an accountability piece. If you've got a bigger team and a growing team, different people will be responsible for different tasks. You'll have a graphic designer, you'll have your video editors, you'll have your people doing your copyright, you'll have your people doing the design work, and there's CRM work. And so 4, 5, 6 different people, it's one project, but it's got a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different people involved. So, and there's some things that have got to be done before others. So your project management software can help you to become very, very, very organized. And so as far as some of the tips and some of the software out there, look, I personally love Asana. I've used Asana for a long time. I moved away from it just recently and picked up another one called Proof Hub or Project Hub. I love that one. It's now got, it's not my own piece of software. It's a what they call a white label piece of software, very much similar to Asana, but it's a lot cheaper. And it allows you to grow without actually having some of the challenges or the barriers, particularly in cost and or the amount of projects you can use. So I think some of the tips around, again, buying or subscribing to project management software or any application is really know what you need now and what you're going to need in the future, and analyze the software. All right, and think about the software. Is this going to work for me today? And if the answer is yes, okay, it's a possible. It's not a definite, it's a possible. If it's free, you're probably going to get stung long term, but just look out for that. And then say, well, in 3 years' time, I want to be at a size of a team and I'm going to be running X amount of projects. What is that going to look like as a cost and a structure? Is the application going to manage that growth? Number one, because quite often the application cost is not high if it's easy to use. So Asana, I think, gets that balance reasonably well, and so does ProofHub. All right. So those two, I would say, will probably be my top picks. They're easy to use. They're easy to implement. And what I love about them, you can actually interchange. In others, if you want to move from one to the other, all right, you can actually export and import most of your data. It's another thing you want to look at. Whatever software you use, whether it's project management, CRMs, or anything, how easy is it to extract all of your information, not just a little bit, all of your information, and move it to something else, and know what your growth trajectory is, so that you pick the right application for your vision, not for your now. All right.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, very true. And that's the way that I like to think. Many moves ahead, right? Too many people are thinking short term, and you don't want to have to change 5 project management systems or any CRMs or whatever. Like, just it's the next thing, right? Get something that's going to help you grow.
I think you just nailed it. It's the next thing. I think a lot of us, we don't put enough effort. Whatever you pick, all right. Number one, you're not stuck with it. All right. Doesn't matter how much money. I get so many people come to me and say, hey, I've got this CRM. I wouldn't mind changing over here, but I've spent so much money trying to get things right, but it's still not working. I don't want to waste that money to move to you. Well, number one, that money's gone. And if it's not working, you gotta ask yourself why. Because the money, you can't get the money back. And if you can get it to move over to something else, there's a thing there. But also when you start to think about this, it's like you've got to think long term. So if you've picked the right software at the start, you never have to move. Yeah. So pick the right software at the start, or if you go, gee whiz, I have made a mistake, own up to it, bite the bullet and say, that was a mistake. It just doesn't do what I need it to do. Don't go for just the next bright, shiny object, all right, because there's millions of different applications out there. Reassess and say, okay, this is what I need, and this is what it's going to cost me to move, and bite the bullet and do it. Don't put up with the pain, and don't start, in the wrong way.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Love that. So true. And yeah, another big one then, obviously we've got these systems in place, but we need to build our team, and outsourcing is a really way, right, that we can do this and reduce our costs, right? Because especially like I know for us in Australia, like I've got a virtual assistant in the Philippines, countries that have lower cost of living wherever they are, right, around the world can help you, especially Australia being one of the highest cost of living countries. And that's not to take jobs away from Australia. It's like doing a combination depending on what's needed, for different roles. But it's obviously a better way that especially in challenging times, to be able to get work done that that other people can do offline. So I'd like to hear your thoughts, around outsourcing, and the benefits of it.
All right. So the main benefit most people think about is it's cheaper. All right. But the main barrier to that is we're taking jobs away from Australia. So you've mentioned those two. Can I just say, with the right outsourcing strategy, it's not just something you do just because it's cheap. Just like an application, don't just do it because it's the cheaper way to go, because there is a learning curve to remote workers and building an outsourced team. It costs you money in your time to set that up, because it is different. They've got a different culture typically and other things. So don't do it just on cost. Build a strategy. Why am I doing this? right? Is this about growth? In other words, I want to grow, and one of my barriers of growth is cost. All right. However, as I get more, more growth, I will put on Australian people. And that was the strategy I had. I had a strategy very simple. I had a 3-to-1 strategy, 3 Australian employees to 1 Filipino. Yeah. And so that was a strategy I built when I built my training company. And so literally, simply, as soon as I got 3 people in my Australian office, all right, I then put on a Filipino. But that was my strategy. That's what worked for me. All right. A strategy is crucially important. Also, where, like it's not just about finding somebody that can do the job. Like we don't just get a VA because they have got the skills. You don't just employ anybody because the skills. There's got to be a cultural connection. They've got to work for your company, and they've got to share your values. So the process to employ an outsourced person, whether it's from, whether it doesn't matter what country it's from, you've got to align your values. So the interview process I see is very much the same, and I've got the whole thing mapped out. I'm happy to share with your viewers a whole set of steps of how to actually go through the VA service and actually pick the right people and go through the process. But don't pick them on cost. Don't pick them on skill level alone. You've got to look holistically at it. And one of the things that I've found, this is just my personal research, I've had outsourced teams or outsourced staff members in 7 different countries. And I come back to the Philippines time and time again for a couple of reasons. One is their time zone is pretty close to Australia. All right. So there's only a couple of hours difference in their business hours to ours, and you can typically get them to work the similar hours to us in Australia. So that's a good one. Their English is extremely good. Their schools teach English. So unlike a lot of other countries, they might get a little bit tongue-tied with different languages. The English is generally fairly good, and they're written English as well as they're spoken English. The part I love about the Philippines is, and most people don't understand this, depending on where it is, if you're around Manila, Clark, or down south in Davao or Cebu, the amount of universities that are outputting high-quality trained people is huge. Some of the best universities in the world around the digital and the social media stuff is coming out of a place called Cebu. All right. And so their universities are almost tailoring their courses to the outsourced world. That's the way that they're doing it. So they're training them not just in how to do digital marketing, or not just on how to do graphic design, but how to do it as an outsourced employee or building an outsourced team. So that's a curriculum that's just starting to change now within their education system. So they are, as I said, Cebu, Davao is not too far away from that now, and Manila's a little bit not quite as up on it, but you can get some really high quality staff members for the right price, and they've got a great culture. They, like the Filipinos, and you know yourself, Athin, Filipino people are beautiful people. They really are people who want to help, who have very much a passion and a heart. They're very loyal, all right? But you've got to get the right person. So I think that's the main thing about, what's the mindset around getting an outsourced team member, building an outsourced team. There's some other practicalities to it. How do you do that? Where do you get these people from? You can go through things like Craigslist. You can start off with something like Upwork or Freelancer, and start to find somebody there. There's ways of doing it yourself, just like putting a job application in. There's ways of doing it, and you put into Seek here in Australia. There's a seek.com or seek.ph in the Philippines. You can do that. Craigslist is another one. I personally think the best way is through some sort of agency. All right. So an agency, and potentially having an office space rather than home based. So you got to start to think about it. It's quite a complex sort of thinking process or thought process. But my preference would be, and it's not because I run an agency like this, it's purely simply because it's my experience that people working from home, particularly in the Filipino culture, they need like their sense of community, or as a culture, being in an office works for them. A percentage of them are okay at home, but predominantly they actually like to work in an office. They feel like they're a part of something, and it's great for a team culture when they're together rather than scattered all over the place. Now, I know there's other people who disagree with that. It adds a cost, all right, to be able to put them in an office. But that's probably a better way. But there's agencies out there that will recruit people for you, and then you can actually put them in a home-based situation. So lots of different varieties of things there, Athin.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks for that. Yeah, really awesome on how to think about these things and the benefits around it. And just one level deeper, I guess, is there's a lot of different things that we can do it. Like when people think about VAs, they're like, oh, it's just like an admin person or something like that, right? Or you said, you mentioned a couple other ones like a graphic designer, or like, a developer or something like that. But, you can really get a lot of different types of roles, like almost anything, right? Especially now, like you're saying, these universities, they're training really awesome people. I guess as a business owner, if you're well established, you've probably got a lot of roles anyway already there. But let's just say you're growing as a business and you're thinking about not just my first hire, but my first few hires. That's really going to take me to that next level. And if I want to, leverage outsourcing, to allow for me to reinvest the remainder of the money into the business to grow it, and then hire Australians after. What do you think are some of the initial key roles that we should be having in a business to hire to really grow it?
Good. Look, I think if I was to say it as a strategy or a general strategy, a generalist with leadership ability. Now, what I mean by that is somebody who's had a bit of experience with CRMs and a little bit of social media experience. The administration side of things is teachable, but if they've got some CRM/social media experience, website experience, I would be saying that is the place to stay. And what we call them as a generalist, a person who's had 4 or 5 years experience in the industry that has got some leadership. So you need to have your own system to be able to test if they've got leadership skills or not. So that's the person. They become then your project manager long term. So they become a bit of a jack of all trades, but having the leadership ability then gives you the chance to diversify. If you just look at your own current need right now and you say, gee whiz, I just need a social media person, and you find the absolute gun social media person, you're gonna lock yourself in. And so if you want to grow, then how do you grow? Which way to go there? Because you're looking at it in silos rather than holistically. But if you can grow to look at getting that person's going to be your team leader, your project manager, that's the way I did it, and it worked. And that's the way I've recommended to most of my clients to do it, and it's worked. Right? If you're just asking after people where you can do the system yourself and give it to them, and they just do, and they become, for want of a better word, the repetitive sort of tasks, that's okay. You don't necessarily need to build a team. You need to build an individual people, and you manage them from home base. All right. But it depends on where your vision is, whether you want to grow it to the stage where, as a business owner, you can walk away and everything still works. If that's the case, you need some sort of project manager. Now, it could be internal or external.
Yeah, cool, mate. That's very powerful there, and how to look at it and frame it. A big one now is Chat GPT, right? It's on everybody's lips.
Oh yeah,
a lot of big stuff about automating and people going, oh, is it going to take over roles, or using it within roles and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Chat GPT and how we can utilize it in our business as it's still forever growing, to this day, every day.
So, but since its inception, like I might be an old dude, but I'm a bit of a techno nerd, and I have been since computers come out. I've probably had one of the first computers ever delivered in Australia. I love it. And I'm excited. I mean, literally jumping out of my seat every time I start to think about this topic. And I've done a podcast on it just the other day myself. And Chat GPT is definitely going to cost jobs if you don't embrace it. If you ignore it, all right, if you're a graphic designer, maybe not so much, but eventually yes. But if you're in the copywriting website, if you're in a space where information is crucial and you do not embrace it, you will eventually lose it. I cannot stipulate that enough. I think you've got to be excited about it and not fearful. And remember, this is the thing that people don't understand. It's big on everybody's lips at the moment, but AI, artificial intelligence, has been around for ages. Like if you go to Amazon, what happens? Or you go to Woolworths, or you go to any shopping site, and you type in, I want a pair of boots, a new pair of boots. What happens? Your boots come up, you look at that, and then as soon as you hit the checkout, what happens? You get all these suggestions on socks and different this and that, and that's AI. So it's not like it hasn't been around for a long time. It's a prompt to do things. If you do this action, make it do this. All right. And AI, artificial intelligence, builds that information, and it builds information through multiple channels to be able to give you suggestions. So number one, don't be fearful of anything. It's exciting. Embrace it, and then understand how you can leverage it, and it can amplify what you already do, because it will never replace a human being. It's still going to require, doesn't matter how good you actually, the key word in ChatGPT is prompts. Whatever prompt you give it, whatever basic question you ask or prompt you give the machine, it will give a machine answer. All it does, it goes into its big vault of information and pulls that information out. Now, let me say, that information is not all current either. And so as extra information becomes available on the internet, it's not necessarily being pulled into ChatGPT yet. It's not a totally live system. It's actually still siloed into pockets of information. It's pretty thorough and does a lot of good stuff, but it's not complete. So don't allow a machine to take away your human being. You've got to still put the human into whatever it pulls out. And so I think that's the two tips. Don't be afraid, and don't let it replace the human being. Same as what I said in the CRM. Don't let anything replace the human piece to it, the human content. Now, the more information you can put into it, for instance, as you said earlier, I've written a couple of books. So if I put all my books, copy and paste and put all my books into ChatGPT and ask it to write another book about a particular topic, what it's going to do, it's going to analyze my speaking, my speech patterns, the different words, keywords that I use a lot, and it will write a new article based on my voice. And so now I can then look at it, and it does a lot of the work, but I'm going to go, well, hang on a second, I don't really think that way, because it's only going to give you ideas. It's going to give you information based upon a bank of knowledge that some of it you may or may not agree with. So you've got to think, is this really what I want it to do? And then unleash it. Absolutely unleash your potential and leverage it. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, I love it. Powerful stuff there, and incorporate it into what we do, definitely. And business has been a lot of challenges along the road. I know I've had them. I'm sure you have along the time. So, do you want to maybe share, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies? You want to maybe share a big challenge or a lesson learned or something like that? Throughout your journey.
How much longer we got?
A quick one, all right?
Well, I'm grey and you're a bit thin on top there, mate. That doesn't happen because we're thriving. We haven't got a bit of stress in our life sometimes. But like the biggest, there's probably a couple for me. One is, if you fail to systemize your business, you'll eventually crash and burn. That's, I've mentioned that a couple of times already. I didn't do it in a previous business. It just about sent me to the wall, when I hurt myself. However, just last year I went through, it was not a pretty year. I had COVID 3 times. I ended up in hospital and I literally flatlined a couple of times. I had heart surgery. But during that time, my business grew. I was out for basically 6 months of the year, unable to work because of my health. And then I suffered some, I endured some relationship challenges. All right. And I unfortunately went through a divorce, which is a whole nother story. But During that time, I was a bit emotional and not physically right. My business grew. And so having the systems in place, the difference between what happened in the building industry and now, chalk and cheese. One, I didn't have to worry about it, and things were okay. The other one was literally just about lost my shirt off my back. The second biggest one I would say, and that is engaging in the right coach. I don't mean engaging in the right online course or the latest guru you can watch their video. I mean somebody you can interact with and communicate with and can give you some honest feedback. Now, a coach doesn't mean a person that can do everything. It might mean you need a marketing coach. You might need a sales coach. You might need a leadership coach. There's multiple different types of coaches out there. All right. Not all coaches can coach across the board. And so getting the right coach, and I say that very, very clearly, not just attending the next conference that's going to give you the next feel good. All right. A conference feel good is okay, but who is going to keep you accountable to them to implement it? All right. So if you want to go to a series of conferences and get information and learn, make sure there's somebody there to keep you accountable to actually implement. They're the two biggest ones: systemize, coach, and listen to them. Actually listen to them. Like, actually be vulnerable. Don't be arrogant. Don't think you know it all, because you don't. It doesn't matter if it's your area of expertise. There's always people out there that can offer, and a good coach, like my coach, Michael Griffiths is one of my coaches. He is absolutely brilliant in the area of partnership and building networks, etc. And a legend guy. All right. Now, he's not an expert at everything, but what he's good at is, if I bring him an idea, he's good at helping me to distill the information so that I keep focused on my true north and don't get off track. And then gives me some advice on, hey, you might need to have a talk to this person to help you more in the in-depth sort of stuff. Doesn't profess to know it all. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it, mate. Really powerful things that, about the challenges and what's helped you move forward on the lessons to go forward. And, yeah, it's been a very powerful podcast today. And I guess as we're wrapping up, even though you've given us some, a few key tips here, I always like to ask, where possible at the end, is what's one key piece of advice you'd like to give all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Know when to push forward and know when to back off. I think, if you don't have something in place to know when you should be moving forward, or when you should be pursuing something, or when you should be stopping or pulling back, get something in place. And I call it a decision matrix. I think that is the key, and that was something that I've been helped with Michael and a couple other coaches, is if you don't know when to say no and when to say yes, you'll pretty much say either yes or no to everything. So if you're a yes person, in other words, you're an optimistic sort of person, yes, I'll do that, and you'll burn yourself out. If you're a pessimistic sort of personality, you'll go, oh, no, that's too hard, no, that's too hard, no, that's too hard. But we've got to get outside of our comfort zone sometimes. If you're that reserved sort of person, nothing wrong, there's no right or wrong here, but if you're that reserved sort of person and you don't have a mechanism that will make you push a little bit harder to say yes, even when you know there's going to be a bit of pain, all right, you'll be forever stuck. And or if you're that eternal optimist, which is pretty much me, I say yes to everything. I've got to know when to say no, and sometimes holding me back is the key. And so that matrix will really help you and get the coach to be able to pull that apart for you.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Love that. Completely agree. Really, really powerful. And yeah, we connected through our networks where I learned about your awesome journey from running a $45 million building company to starting your own businesses, to selling your companies, and to now running these free companies with a suite of services ranging from CRM, business systems, project management software, and outsourced teams. You're an awesome guy, very knowledgeable, and I'm sure you continue to create time and freedom for business owners. I'm very grateful that we connected. I look forward to working with you. So how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Easiest way, my company is the Transformational Hub, so it's transformhub.com.au. So if you want to transform your life, you go transformhub.com.au.
Awesome. Definitely check out transformhub.com.au, everybody. You can see Kel here, wisdom and knowledge on all these different areas to take your business to that next level. And thank you for everyone for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way we'll know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.